Hey guys, welcome back to another week of development on Neon Squad Tactics, a turn-based XCOM that I'm developing with Tin Man Games for the Oculus Quest 2 and 3. This is a pretty special week as we're approaching our beta milestone for the game, so all content is now in the process of finalizing and we're able to touch up and polish what we have. To kick this week off, as I was working with my laptop for a few days, I'm pushing my changes up onto the repository so I can pull onto my desktop and keep working on there. While I'm doing that, let me run you guys through the plan for today. For release of the game, we're highly specific about the frame rate that we need to maintain for the game, and spawning characters can be extremely expensive for a few reasons. There's the visuals that need to load, abilities, unique weapons and identifiers, a lot of JSON deserialization that needs to happen with the bulk graphs. You get the picture, there is a lot. And when you have a level with a handful of characters all spawning at the same time, this process can really impact the frame rate. That's a problem that we've been trying to tackle for a while now. Now, the obvious solution to this is to use object pooling, which is definitely the correct approach. However, there is a limitation. This game is also a networked multiplayer, meaning we would need to account the pooled characters to a networked system, which, if you're familiar at all with networking in games, can be a bit complex. Last week, I started on a system that can actually get around all of the loading, which is an extremely common approach in video games, which is to front load or back load. Now, if you've ever played a game and you've seen a loading screen, if it wasn't obvious, this is essentially what's happening. There's always processes running in the background, but sometimes they're disguised in loading screens, so that when you're introduced to the gameplay, the content is already there and you're not faced with lag spikes or frame drops. A great example of this is a world-generating game like Terraria or Minecraft. For how big the game files are, they actually contain extremely little content because the content is generated on runtime. So when you first load a world, you're going to go through a process of loading screens where it's generating everything and doing all the iterations, so that when you join the world yourself, there will be virtually no lag spikes as all the data has now been loaded and is stored internally. Now, this is the practice that I'm going to be using, and I've already set most of it up. To visualize it in our single player mode, when we load into the scene, as a player, you won't even be able to tell the difference, but in the back end, your characters are completely loaded in, but are visually hidden from you, so that when you spawn them in, all that's happening is you're enabling the game object, or simply flicking a light switch on to say, hey, I'm now enabled. But all the data and loading has already been handled, meaning our gameplay experience can be extremely smooth. I've spent a few days setting the system up, and now it's time to refine it and smooth it out. So let's jump into it. Hey guys, just been working on the visuals and implementing the screen fade to hide the loading when I came across an interesting, I wouldn't say bug, but mistake that I made. Now, this project has been in development for about 2 years now, meaning the codebase for it is extremely large. And as such, there's certain naming conventions that can be really easy to mix up, especially when I have IntelliSense and autofill set up in my code editor. So I missed this a few times because I had the name actor queue and actor list mixed up and was trying to retrieve from the queue, which was never returning the correct thing. Now, let this be a lesson to double or even triple check the code you're working on. Fortunately, that only took me about 15 minutes or so to pick up on, but definitely the time could have been spent working on more refining. Anyway, let's jump back into it. After a bit of work, I jumped into a meeting with the other tech developer in the team to do some multiplayer testing of the content that I've been adding in. So there were a couple of minor bugs that were completely expected, but I was able to flesh it all out in about half an hour or so, which was great. The game overall at the moment is looking pretty clean. Now, next on the list is to add in the reaction bots. Now, the reaction bots are exactly the same as regular bots, but they're spawned in from a reaction during the gameplay. So during gameplay, this could be something like maybe stepping on a dangerous tile, or it gets to a specific round, and to make the game more difficult, a new enemy is going to spawn in. Now, this was a system that I assisted in setting up about a month or two ago, but it's set up slightly differently to regular bot spawning, so I'll need to adjust this part of the code now, so let's get into it. It's about 6 o'clock, guys. Just finished work for the day, but I think because we're in beta, because we've got a deadline, I'm gonna work a little bit more. But I'll catch up with you guys in just a little bit with some more game development. Alright, I've just whipped up a little something. Now, the way to test this is basically playing through a level that I know has a reaction bot in it, and if it spawns in without any issue and the gameplay has no problems, then I'll be able to tell that everything is smooth. It's a new day now, and I was actually recording some B-roll for this video when I came across a bug in the game where as soon as I spawned my characters, I got the victory screen. I dragged the poor designer into a meeting, went over a couple of potential problems, and we quickly diagnosed it as a naming error. As a quick solution, he's asked me to write up a validator basically to check the level data and ensure that there aren't any typos due to human error. So that's what I'll be starting off with today. The way that I can do this is by getting the list of mission files, and if they're a type of assassinate or timed assassination, then I know that there's going to be a value for the objective target. I'll store that target and check that to the key value pairs in the mission and ensure that it exists somewhere there. If it doesn't, then I can output a message to say that we need to look into that level file. Got that whipped up, and fortunately it was just the one random level I found, but definitely good for clarity to know that all other missions are okay. Now, the real task for today that I was assigned was a bug with the ladders in the game. For some reason, when there's 2 or more ladders consecutively, the pathfinding gets a little bit wonky, so I'm going to dig into the algorithm for that and see what's going on there. Finally got some work done on it. It took way longer than expected because I really had no idea what the problem could be or why it's behaving this way, so I had to look into the algorithm and start adding in some filtering so that it ignores tiles that aren't technically walkable. As mentioned, this has been a long project, and certain aspects kind of got lost in translation, and there were double ups on certain objects that were functionally doing the same thing but had different identifiers, and in these double up instances, we weren't filtering for the new versions. While I had been working on that, I pushed yesterday's content up into the build and got the other members to do a bit of QA and testing to try and break it. Fortunately, they identified a minor bug that I'd introduced with the reaction bots. To cut it short, one of the win conditions in some levels is to just defeat all the enemies. However, since I'm spawning the characters in beforehand, even if in the game they're not actually set up yet, they exist in the back end. So a problem arose where if you defeat the existing enemies quick enough before the reaction bots spawn in, the game would wait until they were spawned in and defeated before you would get any sort of win condition. So back in the slammer, let's try and fix this. Took a minute of tinkering, but I think I got it to work. Now, every entity has a dictionary of values, and I added in a key to check if they were actually spawned or not. Then when the elimination condition is running, there's an extra check to make sure that the bot that it's checking has also been spawned in with this key, and if it hasn't, then it can ignore it completely. Now, out of fear of this video dragging on for too long, I might wrap it up here. These were the big final changes that I had to work on anyways. The rest are just going to be minor bug fixes and polish before the game is officially under beta. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you guys did, definitely subscribe, like the video, and comment your thoughts on the game. As I wrap up, I'll leave you guys with some early in-game footage. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.
Target acquired. Initiating annihilation protocol.